Precinct B, and Robert K. Finn, Ryan Road School Gymnasium. Ward 7, Precinct A in JFK Middle School Community Room. Ward 7, Precinct B in Leeds School Gymnasium lower level. And I think Pam was here. Oh, there she is. Pam, is there anything you want to add to this? Oh, do we have to unmute her?
Yeah, I just asked her to unmute.
Don't have anything specific to add to the warrant, but I just want to point out that for many voters who got their red books in the mail with their questions in them, the red book does not contain all of the questions that are on the ballot. And so you'll notice on the warrant, there is a question 4 and a question 5. And the question 4 has to do with the repeal of a recent legislation that was passed concerning driver's licenses. And question 5 is a public policy question that's up for consideration. So I just wanted to point that out.
So to clarify that those 2 questions you just referred to, 4 and 5,
Yep.
those are not on an information, or is that the mail-in ballot that we're talking about?
So every household that has registered voters should have received a red booklet containing information
Right.
about questions that were going to be on the ballot. Those 2 questions are not in that particular book.
Okay, so the information wasn't provided.
Right, I think one of the ballot questions, question 4, actually, the nomination, the petitions had not been approved by the Secretary of the Commonwealth when the book was printed, and the public policy question is specific to certain counties within the state. So, yeah, that's why they're not printed in that book.
So, but the questions will be in on the mail-in ballot, the early ballot, and okay.
They are definitely on the mail-in ballot. I just wanted to point that out in case people were wondering, when they look at the warrant or look at the ballot, those questions are not in that particular book to find. So in other words, people will have to go to a different source to find additional information about those questions.
Thank you, Pam. Councilor Maori.
Yeah, I was just wanted to clarify. So, Clerk Powers, you sent out something about the changes with redistricting and new precincts, right? I remember you did before the primary, I believe, at some point.
Right. By state law, we were required to send every registered household information about new polling locations, only if their polling location had changed.
Yeah, I some folks in Fairway Village seem to be confused, and I don't know if they didn't get that or their ward didn't change, but their precinct did, and they seem confused by that. But I mean, if you sent something, I can certainly send out something in my news letter to them, just clarifying and linking it to your website. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so this is the election warrant. It's before us. We've discussed it a bit. I've read the precincts and where people are going to be voting. This is, I shouldn't move the screen at this hour. Where did it go? There we go. This is in first reading, and so it will be on the on our next. Yeah, this is an ordinance. Yeah, it'll be around here for next time we meet.
The 20th of October.
Yes. Okay. Is there any need to do this sooner, Pam?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. I'll be at the meeting on the 20th just to give my public service announcement about coming out to vote. So
Excellent. It inspires me to vote every year.
well, actually, the early voting starts on, in-person early voting starts on the 22nd. So I think that's
Ah,
timely too. So
It's a great way to vote.
Is it mailed in, Pam, to people for early voting by mail?
So people who have, so we have over 6,000 requests for early vote ballots. We have been promised that the ballots will be received by the 12th of October, which is next Wednesday. We haven't gotten them yet. Other communities do have them. And we're just anxiously waiting. We're ready. We're ready to fill those envelopes with ballots and get them out to voters. So
Well, look at all the hours you're putting in, Pam.
we're prepared. I mean, we're just, it's like the eye of the storm right now. We're just waiting for those ballots to just arrive because there's 6,000 pre-stuffed envelopes waiting for ballots. They've got everybody's name and address to where they're going to be sent
Wow.
already done. Yep, they're just waiting for fillers.
Hmm.
So,
All right. Well, thank you, Pam, and we look forward to hearing from you in 2 weeks.
okay, sounds good.
Okay, next up, all right, so no need to do any more work on that one. We have two ordinances here relative to parking. 22.175, an ordinance relative to parking on Stoddard Street. That's in first reading. And 22.176, an ordinance relative to parking on Prospect Street. They have not been referred, since they're ordinances, they will need to go to legislative matters. But we could discuss other committees to refer them to. So I'll entertain a motion to refer.
Move to refer to legislative matters. I don't know, has it been to transportation and parking?
Yes,
Oh, okay, so legislative matters.
yes, I second that.
Would this be moving those two as a group?
Yes, as a group, please.
Counselor Moulton.
Yes, I agree with moving as a group. Just briefly, the alternating no parking zones on Stoddard Street arose from residents who identified a problem with when vehicles are parked on both sides. Sometimes the street is nearly impassable. They've been working on this for over a year. They've gotten support from everyone on Stoddard, to the best of my knowledge. The Prospect Street ordinance is related. It would improve the sight line as you emerge from Stoddard onto Prospect by eliminating parking for, I believe it's 65 feet immediately along Prospect Street there next to Stoddard.
So we have this group of ordinances on the floor for referral to legislative matters. Any more discussion? Okay, I just want to add this has the Nash parking chicane concept embedded in it on Stoddard Street. So anyway.
Yes, I was
more
not.
later on.
Yes, I was not aware of that Nash concept until I ran into this.
It's a big experiment. Anyway, any more discussion about referring this to legislative matters? Hearing none. Roll call, Laura.
Counselor Foster,
Yes.
Counselor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes,
Counselor Maori,
yes,
Counselor Moulton,
Yes,
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
and Counselor Elkins.
Yes.
Okay, those two items have been referred to those parking items referred to legislative matters. Next up, 22.159, an ordinance to amend section 312-36, parking meter locations and regulations. This is in second reading. It was referred to the Transportation and Parking Commission and Legislative Matters. Neutral recommendation from the TPC with two changes. Class 1A, I'm not going to read all these because they're embedded in the ordinance. And Legislative Matters, positive recommendation as amended by TPC with a limit to the rate increase allowed not to exceed a 100% increase, and various other housekeeping changes. Let's see. Is Carolyn still here?
Carolyn is still here. So I know that this was just at Legislative Matters. I don't know how much of sort of how we got here was talked about, so I'm happy to give a little history unless you all know it or whether you've talked about it already. Did you talk about the public forum that happened in the spring? I'm seeing a nod from Counselor Elkins and from Laura, but everyone else is not giving me a lot to work
Hey,
with.
I'm the president now.
Awake. We definitely talked about it in legislative matters.
Yes. I think Legislative Matters had a very detailed, long, thoughtful discussion. And I'm going to allow the chair of Legislative Matters to fill us in on that discussion. Counselor Jarrett.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I think for counselors, I think the mayor's offer perhaps to explain the history might be useful to counselors who weren't present for legislative matters. If that would be useful to the other counselors.
Yes.
Okay, great.
I'll try and be brief. So in the spring, using a grant, the city asked Stantec's Urban Mobility Group to review the price structure of the downtown parking supply and come back with best practices and make recommendations for a better parking management and pricing system just for downtown. So the principal at Stantec, his name is Jason Schreiber, was the consultant in the original design charrette in 2013 that initiated the Picture Main Street project. So Jason is very, very familiar with Main Street and with our parking. And so this review that we asked them to do in the spring was really driven by the planned redesign of Main Street and the adjustments to parking that it'll create. So we asked Stantec to provide recommendations and to participate in a public forum and a meeting with business stakeholders. So on June 13th, there was a parking policy for Main Street public forum. And then on June 14th, there was another meeting that was had with the chamber and DNA and business stakeholders. And so Stantec, relevant city departments, many city councilors, I know a bunch of you were there, met over Zoom with community members and business owners to talk about the concerns and the parking needs in downtown. Some of the topics that were considered were need for accessible parking on and around Main Street, time restrictions, parking fees, the impact of the pandemic and post-pandemic activity for the patterns in parking in downtown, and sort of anticipated changing future parking demands. So, so from all of this discussion, Jason and Stantec gave us findings and shared some recommendations for the system. And, you know, I think we all know that parking is a really challenging topic. But I would say that these recommendations, which then led to the proposed changes that were discussed at Legislative Matters, have felt like a pretty significant moment of recognition and maybe even consensus of from most of the stakeholders around the need for these changes. And so we're happy to talk about it, and I will hand it over to Carolyn, who can much more efficiently go through the proposal and any questions. And of course, all of you at Legislative Matters would love to hear you weigh in as well. So I hope that was a little bit helpful to give a little bit of the background.
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, can I add one more thing? So we're not planning on implementing these changes until sometime in the new year. And, we recognize that we need to work out the implementation and the logistics of these changes, some of which I think were talked about at Transportation Parking Commission, as well as the communication around these changes, right? We want to make sure that people are aware of this change that's going to be happening to parking on Main Street and sort of in the surrounding parking as well.
Councilor Jarrett.
Does that mean we need to amend this to give a date? Because otherwise, wouldn't it take effect immediately?
Well, I'm raising the hand for myself. So we're handing over discretion to the mayor to figure out when to do all of this. So so the start date could be immediate, but it would be up to the mayor's discretion as to when to start implementing these changes, when the fluctuations would occur. So that's my interpretation of things. Councilor Elkins.
And to that extent, do we want, so we added in that, that 1 year review. Do we want to change it to 1 year from the implementation of the rates or 1 year from, I forget the date that we put, but
November.
Right.
I know we put in a review in November for the exemptions.
Oh, right, but we wanted it to be within the same term, so.
But we weren't doing that for Councilor Jarrett. I don't recall us doing that for we're getting tired. The parking regulations.
Yeah, Councilor Elkins, I think you're thinking of a different
I'm on a
ordinance.
wrong statute, sorry, ordinance, sorry.
Yeah, this
As you
one.
were.
This one has a review in the month of July and the month of December that the mayor takes on and submits reports to the Transportation and Parking Committee. So I guess if we're considering the mayor, there's a change. The big change here, besides setting differing amounts based with a much higher amount on Main Street and much lower amount in surrounding streets to generalize, is that additionally the mayor is authorized to modify these time limits and fees within a limit that we put in. That was something that we added. We said not to exceed a 100% increase, so as to maintain an 85% occupancy rate. To essentially, the goal is to always have some parking available wherever you'd like to park, and that by having a price sensitivity, we will try to maintain that on average. So I guess I just want to make sure we're not going to end up in a situation where this, like, Mayor, do you feel that in the current language there is an authority to not implement this immediately?
I'm trying to look through it really quickly. Carolyn, I don't know if you can answer that off the top of your head, or whether we need to add a line.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it can't hurt to add a line. I don't know what I'm sorry, I don't know what the charter says about sort of other ordinances that general ordinances. There's a practicality of many ordinances that it just takes time to to roll it out. I think even any kind of, even a meter fee adjustment, I would imagine isn't instantaneous at any rate. So I don't know if there's an automatic sort of allowance to, from an administrative standpoint, to get that in, but I don't see how it would hurt to say, this will be implemented after, X months or whatever, and public information campaign or something like that. And then you could also clarify that the first report will be, the reports will be July and December. The first one not to be sooner than 6 months after implementation or something like that, if you want to specify it to that extent. But at the same time, I would think there's leeway for the mayor to say, oh, we just implemented this 2 months ago. It's too soon to do a report. And that's the report back to transportation and parking as well. So I think it could go either way.
Counselor Elkins, you had a question, and looks like Counselor Moulton's holding something up.
Counselor Elkins?
I was just going to say, I think it would be good form to put in whatever the trigger is for when we're going to implement it. Because I think it'll get covered. Gazette will pick it up and people will lose their minds if they don't have any warning. So I guess I offer an amendment. Can I make a motion to amend to add that? I'm really tired and I don't have it in front of me, so I don't know if somebody wants to smith it, but
Counselor Moulton, were you saying much the same thing, or that Counselor Elkins was saying?
The document I was holding up is the city charter, and the charter does state that except as otherwise provided, every adopted measure shall become effective at the expiration of 10 days after adoption.
Or upon the signature of the mayor.
Or
I
upon the
just pulled
signature of the
up
mayor,
same thing.
whichever comes first.
Right.
So,
I think this is a good catch. by
how
Counselor.
long do you have to sign it?
well, no, but it's whichever
10 days.
comes first,
Yeah.
Counselor Elkins. So I think we do need to put a clause in here that it will be delayed.
Agreed.
Yep.
Okay, Counselor Jarrett.
So this is a change to a much larger section. And so I'm a little uncertain how to go about saying that this change shall take effect. Perhaps it is part of the order. No, it's an ordinance. Sorry, so I'm a little confused about technically how to do this, and I wonder if Director Mish or another person might have a thought on that.
Well,
I mean, you could, I would think that, your concern is that because it's a subsection of the ordinance, that you want to be careful that it's not related to any other aspect of the ordinance. Because it's basically the fee structure, the fee adjustments, and that table with the adjusted fees wouldn't take effect until, let's say, April of 2023 or whatever the month is that makes sense from after this discussion.
I think what's confusing me is that there's no preamble. There's no most of these have in the year, City of Northampton, Massachusetts, in the year, upon the recommendation, an ordinance of. If we had that, it would seem pretty simple to say, and this will take effect on this date. But that doesn't exist in what I'm
Laura?
seeing.
Yeah, I have
Amazing,
prepared.
Laura Kratzler, go
Well,
ahead.
No, I just have prepared a standard cover sheet to be attached to this, to the text with the standard enacting clause. I'm sharing it now. Just, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Northampton and City Council assembled as follows, and the Code of Ordinances shall be and hereby is amended as follows. And it's just to amend the existing section 312-36. It doesn't say anything about effective date. Some other ordinances have effective date. This ordinance shall take effect as of, a certain date. So it's, I don't know if that would be appropriate.
So would it serve to
Add within the text or
add within the text of this enactment clause?
or just even the text of the, the bulk of the ordinance itself. That's how
Yeah,
it
the other
is.
thing I yeah, because it's an amendment to an existing statute, so I don't think we want to add another section. I guess I would propose to amend the enactment clause that you just put in front of us.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if that's technical, like that. I don't know if that requires an amendment. That's just
Counselor Foss.
rewording. I don't know.
I just have a suggestion, given that this doesn't need to be enacted right away. I wonder if we want to continue it and then come back with the date or what would trigger enacting it, as well as just that language, so that we're sure we get it right.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think we should table it so that we can come back and put the date, since it's not happening like next week.
Does that work, Carolyn, and Mayor, with your plan? I don't want to delay it, but if it's not going to be implemented right away, does that seem reasonable?
Oh, we certainly could do that. Although I think, we know what the date, that if we did a date in January, that would be fine as well. We could just add that cleanly onto that enacting clause on the order.
I'm fine with that too. I mean, I just don't know if it's because it's not a motion to amend the ordinance. The enacting clause isn't the ordinance, right? But to the extent it is, for the sake of expedience, I would move to amend the enacting clause to add that this amendment shall go into effect at whatever the date is. What did we say, January 1st or?
What do you want, Mayor?
I'm pulling up a calendar.
You're the decider. Sorry.
January 1st is a Sunday and there's no parking enforcement on Sunday. So how about January 2nd?
Sure. January 2nd, 2023.
Okay. And so we're going to add that language where? To the cover sheet, Laura, that you just pulled together?
It could be. I know in the plastic reduction and sustainability ordinance where there's an effective date, it's within the body of the ordinance itself. It's not, because that enacting clause isn't really part of what goes into the code. So perhaps it's more appropriate to have it within the body of the code.
Mm-hmm. So I would be fine with continuing this. I think we're really close. We just really need to think through where we're going to put this potential start date, and I think because we're trying to figure this out right now with the limited brain power to pull this together.
Okay, why don't we come back with a clean version that has it in the right place? We'll maybe talk to Solicitor Seawall, just make sure it's in the right spot, and we'll bring it back to you at the next meeting.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
I think everybody
Mayor.
agrees with that, right? Okay. So thank you. All right. So we'll see that item on our next agenda with a start date. Cool. It's funny, after all of the work, the details that, that went into this, that, Carolyn put, and also Laura helped out with as well. And the start date's the one that slipped by. All right. Let me see. We're really close to the end here.
Plastic reduction.
Yes, thank you, Laura. 22.168, an ordinance amending section 272-18C exemptions. And this item, Laura, can you pull it up?
Sure.
Counselor Nash.
Yes.
So I will need to recuse myself on this item.
Oh, thank you.
It has a possible impact on my business. So I will be recused. And is this the last item on the agenda?
Laura, help me out. It is, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to say good night, everyone.
Hi.
Good
Good
night.
luck.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, so this is not, it's a significant change, but not a significant change. It's just a number and a word, and I think Councilor Maori can speak to this. And Councilor Maori, you there? Oh, darn. Is she muted somewhere?
Mute.
There she is.
Yay. Yeah, it's because I got kicked off and I had to come back.
Oh, okay.
It was not your oversight. Yes, this was suggested by Councilor Elkins. And I've been thinking about it. I was grateful for the suggestion. But I'm wondering, after the meeting, I was thinking maybe 2 years would be a better date, because originally the two 6-month periods were already built in. That makes sense. There would be, the first year would be there's already 2 6-month exemption possibilities. So in terms of addressing the concern that, the exemptions will kind of go on and on without kind of checking in and seeing if businesses are attempting to comply or if there's obstacles to compliance. I'm just wondering if maybe the 2-year mark would be better. But I don't know if I'm kind of hoping Director Lascalia is not here, but she could, we could also ask her that question about when it might be appropriate to have that review. I want enough time that we have something, to really talk about in terms of having a handle on any obstacles. And basically we had, a year of exemptions in the original ordinance before the amendment. So that was what I was thinking, but I'm happy to discuss it with you all.
Well, so Councilor Maori, could you speak to the initial reason that this went out, which is to adjust to strike 2 and the number 2, and so what was the impetus behind that? And then we'll look at the 2-year review, the review.
Right. Yeah. So we've been wanting to implement this. It's in line with our values. I started working on this before I was on council, and a lot has changed. And we were finding that there are obstacles to implementation because of supply chain issues, and not really being post pandemic. We're kind of in this great land where things aren't really back to normal, and but we don't want to delay the implementation of this ordinance. So this was a way to give some latitude to the enforcing agent, which is our Director Lascalia. And so because there's some businesses, we don't want to give something that's kind of too unwieldy to enforce when there are still some issues with rollout. So that was the idea, to give latitude to the enforcing agent. And there, and you know, as Councilor Moulton had pointed out, there's kind of built-in reviews with this every 6 month having to go back to apply for an exemption. So within that process, there'll be information that we'll get from the business about what, you know, what's going on in terms of obstacles. So yeah, that was the thinking behind it. That, you know, we originally wrote this in a pre-pandemic world, and we had more confidence and predictability in supply issues and cost. And since there's still some uncertainty there, we thought it would be best to give a little bit more latitude in the languaging. And then Councilor Elkins suggested the kind of check-in or, you know, report back because of, you know, the concern of, well, we don't want, you know, endless, endless exemptions and not motivating businesses to kind of try to comply, which I understand. But I was just trying to think of the best way to, you know, the best date, you know, the best time to do that. So,
I'm sorry, Councilor Maori, I'm not.
Oh, I'm mumbling because I'm tired, but
I
since
know.
Director Lascalia unfortunately is still here and not asleep, perhaps, you know, she could add to that as the person who's going to be dealing with this. Yeah.
Yeah, I can just say a few words about this. I mean, I think the issue with the original wording in the ordinance was that, you know, there was a hard cap on any exemptions that we were allowing businesses. And we've done a lot of community outreach on this. I personally have spoken to a lot of business owners about this. And, you know, I think everyone agrees with the intent of the ordinance. And we want to have an ordinance that works for our business community and for the person who has to enforce this. And it's very difficult when we have supply chain issues and you know, just lack of available products to actually enforce something that has hard time caps on it. The way the original ordinance was written, we had no ability to grant exemptions, you know, after a certain time period had elapsed. So this gives us a little more latitude. If the product doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. So this gives us latitude to grant exemptions. And then I think you folks might have to talk about what level of reporting you would like from us regarding who is receiving these exemptions. But that's kind of the spirit behind this.
Councilor Elkins. All right, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Oh, sorry.
Councilor Elkins.
Okay. So just a big, you know, my thought behind the amendment when offered was to really just hear how many businesses are coming and asking for the exemption and what are the reasons why, so that we can assess it. And so I don't think we want to push that kind of review out as far as 2 years. And also because the reasons in a year might be quite different than what they might be in 2 years. And the other thing too is the part of it is ideally we don't want like Donna and her department to be, you know, coming down hard on business owners trying to like, you know, figure out how they're going to comply with this. And we don't want to I don't think we want to put them in the position for that long of having to keep passing on this and making determinations of what the right without guidance from us of what constitutes a good reason and what doesn't, right? So I feel like that's our role and not not it's our role to tell Donna and to tell the department of how, you know, we want that interpreted. So I think it's not I didn't envision it as in detailed report, but I think we ought to stick with a year so too much time doesn't pass with businesses not complying or asking for exemptions, Donna having to make those determinations and us not knowing why and how many.
Makes sense.
Counselor Moulton.
Yes, I agree. I think the ordinance will take effect October 31st. The director has the ability to grant a 1-year exemption from that point, so that by next November, when we ask for our first review of this, we'll know how many businesses have asked for an additional exemption past that first year. And I think that will be useful information.
Just one correction there. It's they're not 1 year, they're 6-month intervals.
The mayor's designee may exempt a food or retail establishment from the requirements of this ordinance for a period of up to 1 year.
Right.
That's
Thank you.
before any additional 6-month
Right.
exemptions.
Thank you for being more awake than me. Counselor Maori.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious if the mayor's office is going to offer any, or can offer any support to businesses in terms of complying. I mean, I obviously, Director Lascalia is the enforcing agent, but yeah, I'm just curious if there's going to be any, kind of bolstering of that. Because it's a big job it's technical stuff, and it's a big job to discuss this with the businesses and kind of check in on the businesses. And I would really like personally to see the DPW get some support around this.
Okay. I mean, our office doesn't have more expertise than they do.
Well, I'm not thinking expertise. I'm thinking just people power. I just wondering, it seems like a big job. That's all. It's not expertise, but the time to kind of if you have to go back and forth with businesses. Jim and I did this. It's time consuming. We went to the businesses. We went and looked at their different products and their different plastics, and it's just kind of a big job. And I was just trying to picture how it's going to roll out. My thinking was, that kind of support would help. Would help with compliance, but.
Well, yeah, I appreciate us thinking about the effects that our ordinances have and the work they create.
Right.
So it is always good to keep that in mind when we're creating new systems. As always, any support we can offer, we always do. And Director Lascalia and I are in very close contact all the time. So, we will see how it's going.
Yeah, excuse me, I'm getting tired of interrupting. No, I was going to say, what might come to light at some point is, that we need to do some language changes. I mean, it's just so the reason I looked at this with the Youth Commission again, and it's like, it's just it's too uncertain to say, oh, we need to take out this, or this plastic will be more relevant or less, this type of plastic. So I think that kind of information is still uncertain, but eventually, we could make it more precise by language changes would make it easier to kind of comply and enforce it. But anyway, that's just down the road.
So
I mean,
my recommendation at this point would be that, yes, we can do further discussion around updating language and things like that to improve things, and we can work with Director Lascalia. I just want to address the item that we have before us.
Yeah.
And Director Lascalia, you wanted to say something just then?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in uninvited. I was just going to say, I mean, there's been a fair amount of publicity around this. My office has done a fair amount of outreach. Business owners are aware of what's contained in this ordinance and what's expected. The exemption requests that we are going to get, will be self-evident here, within the next 6 months. And if we will have a very good handle on what the specific problems are with this ordinance by the time we reconvene on it, you know, in a 12 or 13 month period. And, you know, we'll be able to answer these questions a little bit better at that time, I think.
Right. Thank you for that. I guess, sorry.
Go ahead, Rachel.
I was just going to add, so I'm just trying to do the math. I want it to be a little past a year so that we've gotten past the first, you know, exemption period. So if it's October 31st rollout and we have a report back, when we say November 1st, sorry. Would we know by then who's applying for, you know, for past a year for an exemption?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would certainly be easier from a timing standpoint. You know, if I could report out, you know, at the end of the calendar year, you know, this ordinance goes into effect October 31st, right? Which means people like oftentimes run right up until the deadlines.
Right, that's what I'm thinking.
And then we need a review period. So you know, I think if you were to modify this, I would say by the end of the calendar year would probably be a good date to target. So, you know, December, you know, a December date, maybe before the last council meeting in December would be a good date, because that would give my office time to sort of process the information that we've gotten and to at least be able to give you an idea of what we're looking at.
Counselor Elkins.
So I'd like to move to amend the language where we put in a date from whatever it is that we put to say the last council meeting of 2023 or to whatever year this is going to happen.
2023.
That,
2023.
yeah.
Yes,
So my
I-
motion would be, I'd like to move to amend the date from the November date to the last council meeting of 2023.
Second.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to amend this. Motion made by Counselor Elkins, seconded by Counselor Moulton, to amend November to the last council meeting of 2023. Any discussion? Counselor Maori.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, I really like that because it, you know, I don't know, but it seems to me I have a lot of businesses that take that first year to just kind of move into compliance, and then it will be very illuminating the ones who are really, you know, just that one, those couple months or whatever that are applying again, and I think that will be really interesting. That will be very impactful information. So yeah, I'm for that.
All right, so any further discussion on that amendment? Laura, did you get the amendment?
I did. Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion for the amendment? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Counselor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett. Oh, sorry, he's recused.
Recused.
Yep. Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
and Counselor Foster.
Yes.
Okay. So that passes, the amendment passes. Any further discussion on this?
Just thank you, and thank you to Counselor Elkins. I felt like that was, you know, a good call.
Thanks for talking through it and doing it, passing, you know, getting the ordinance through in the first place.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh,
Thank you, Counselor Maori.
So I'd move to pass.
Second.
Okay, motion to approve this made by Counselor Elkins and seconded by Counselor Perry. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
Counselor Foster,
Yes.
and Counselor Gore.
Yes.
Okay.
That was multitasking by yawning and saying yes at the same time. It's
I
very
know.
Yes, and so that passes and that change has been approved and we have a report date. And that is the end of what we have on the agenda here. Laura was hoping for 11. She said, no way, 12. And I think we're kind of right in the middle.
Split the difference.
Oh, no pizza, Laura.
Move to adjourn?
Yeah, motion to adjourn, made by Counselor
Second.
Foster, seconded by Counselor Perry. No discussion on adjournment. Laura, roll call, please.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes, with jazz hands.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
Counselor Foster,
Yes.
Counselor Gore,
Yes.
and Counselor Labarge.
Oh, fine. Now she holds out.
We're still waiting for Mary Ann.
You're muted.
Muted.
Counselor Labarge, you're muted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here we go. You are adjourned.
Yes,